Hi, everybody. This is brand new to me. I'm going to attempt to do a live. I think I'm live. It says live, right? I have absolutely no clue. I can't even believe I made it this far. I'm going to try something different. What I'd like to do is this week's episode of the EMP series, I'm going to try to read it live. And then I think it can go to video after that. I'm not really quite sure on how all that works. But I'm going to try to put I have to read the story that I wrote. So I'm going to try to put that up here where I could see it. Hopefully no one else is going to be able to see it, but I'm really not sure what it's going to show. So I just, bear with me because this is really new. But after that, if there is anybody in here live, like that has any questions or comments about it, then we can go to that. If somebody does come in and comment during the time that I'm reading the story, I'm probably not going to be able to see it. I'm certain I'm not going to be able to see it because all I'm going to see is the Word document that I'm reading from. So that'll take like 10. So bear with me. I'm going to put that up and I'm going to try to read it. Again, this is day 157 of the EMP series story that I've been writing. And I'll begin. Day 157. 2 men from the MC were camped in the woods outside of the home of Tyler Hobbs. It had rained on and off all night. They could not have had a fire for risk of being seen and were cold and miserable. The one currently on watch woke up. The one currently on watch woke the other just after first light when the 3 men left the house and started up the van. They rolled down the driveway and head toward the main road. In town, Buddy Tanner and the other member were just waking up as well. They slept in a mezzanine in an old abandoned warehouse. Their night was somewhat unpleasant as well, but at least they were dry. They had plans to all meet up later this afternoon upriver out of town where they had camped the other night. All the evidence that could be collected from the train site, the scene of the murders 2 nights ago, was gathered yesterday. Major Stillman has released the train and told the conductor that they could return to their home station today. He assigned 2 soldiers to accompany them for security purposes. The van pulled into the alley next to the diner, and 3 men got out and went in. Yesterday, when 2 men came to town, only 1 left to go back home. 1 remained in town to gain intel on troop movements and take notes of the comings and goings of the constable. Nobody noticed this fact except Buddy Tanner. In fact, the group had been rotating people to spend the day in town for this purpose quite regularly. Today, when they were done with breakfast, 2 of the men went over to the training post to get supplies. The 3rd member of the group blended into the crowd on the street and eventually took a spot on a bench on the train platform. He would move around periodically to avoid suspicion, but was never far from the area around the post and the encampment of soldiers adjacent to it. When Buddy saw this, he told his man to pack quickly. He said, "Let's go, we gotta move." They slipped quietly out a back window and down along the outside wall of the warehouse and crossed over into another alley, which led to the back road. From there, they moved quickly and quietly down the road until they came to the opposite end of the alley that the van was parked in. They made their way up to the van and checked out the passenger door. It was unlocked. They got in and crouched out of sight behind the front seats. Carl Fairley was in his office. He arrived early, as he did most days. Upstairs, Major Stillman watched out his window, looking toward the camp where his troops lived. He smoked a cigar and watched the activity there. Lieutenant Saunders was with the detail of soldiers bringing wood and the conductor and engineer out to the train site. George Henderson and Leroy McMillan were upstairs in the boardroom discussing their various agendas. There was a board meeting scheduled for noon, and Pastor and Ish Patel were currently on their way into town, accompanied by Dalton and Josh and Steve. Greg's new security protocol called for 2 men pulling security during all trips to town. Because of the fact that both most recent board meetings were cut short by attacks from the Citizens of Liberty group, Greg ordered a 3rd man along today. When Tyler Hobbs and his man got into the van, he turned the key and fired up the willing engine. At that moment, Buddy Tanner, who was crouched behind the driver, pulled the slide back on his .45 and stuck it in hard into the rear of the driver's seat, and told both men not to turn around. As his man chambered around in his pistol as well, Buddy said, "Real easy now. Just put her in gear and head back out of town the way you came. Let me caution you that I know where you came from, and if you head in any other direction, I'll kill you both." The van moved slowly out of town and up along the river. When they came to a spot close to where their camp was, Buddy ordered the driver to pull off onto a dirt road that led down along the river, an access road used by fishermen and canoers back in the day. They proceeded down and out of sight of the main road. When they got as close as they could to where the men had camped 2 nights ago, Buddy ordered them to stop. "Now what?" Tyler Hobbs asked. "Now we wait," replied Buddy. "Wait for what?" questioned Tyler. "You know, the soldiers and the constable do regular patrols up through here. They're bound to come across us." "I doubt that," said Buddy. "If I was you, I'd hope they don't. Or we just might feel obligated to tell them how we saw this very van driving out to the train site the other night, and how we heard shots, and then saw you come back and head up that gravel road up yonder a piece. I'm sure they would love to hear all about that. I heard in town yesterday that 2 soldiers got murdered up there that night. Y'all know anything about that?" Buddy asked. Tyler and his man looked at each other and said nothing. "I really don't want to have to turn you over to the law or the military," Buddy said. "I've got plans for y'all. You're going to be a big help to us." He laughed. His man laughed too. Tyler Hobbs and his man were not laughing. When Buddy's 2 men returned from the Hobbs homestead, they filled them in on all they saw. They estimated 7 men and 2 women at the house. 4 men now that Tyler and the other man were in the van, and the 3rd man left back in town. Buddy laid out his plan to take control of the homestead. With Tyler and the other bound and placed in the rear of the van, they waited until dark and headed out toward the gravel road that led up to Tyler's house. Just before they passed through the gate, they stopped briefly to let 2 of their men out. Buddy shut the lights off and waited there long enough to give his men time to work their way up through the woods to the rear of the house. Buddy's man sitting in the passenger seat said, "Okay," as he heard the tone on his watch alert them that the allotted time had run down. Buddy started the van and drove up to the house. He left the lights on to make it difficult for the guard to see his face inside the van. After a minute, the guard got up out of his seat and walked over to the top of the steps. "Everything okay, Tyler?" he asked. When he didn't get an answer, he started down the 3 steps to the driveway. He walked over to the driver's door. By this time, the other 2 men with them were situated on the back porch, ready to go through the door and enter the house. Buddy had his head turned and leaned downward, as if he were retrieving something from the rear floor of the van, so the approaching guard could not see his face. When the guard was right outside the van, Buddy turned with one swift motion and plunged his knife right into the man's throat through the open window. He wrapped his arm around the guard's neck with his hand over his mouth, but he was dead before he had a chance to scream. Buddy released him, and he fell to the ground. Buddy and his man walked silently up the front steps until they reached the door. They waited several minutes until again a tone on his partner's watch alerted them that it was their cue to enter the house. Both teams entered simultaneously through the front and back doors with weapons drawn. The two in the back quickly and quietly subdued two of the women who were in the kitchen sitting at the table. They gagged them and bound them to chairs with duct tape. Buddy stood in the hall watching the stairs while this happened. When they were secured, all four men ascended the staircase single file. At the top, two men went left and two went right. To the right, at the end of the hallway, was a man sitting in a window watching the rear yard with a rifle at his side. When Buddy started toward him, a floorboard creaked, and the man turned to face them and grabbed for his rifle. Buddy fired one shot, which hit him square between the eyes. He fell dead on the floor. The sound of the shot brought Samantha and the remaining two men out of their rooms. Buddy and his man quickly disarmed them without incident as they entered the hall. One of the men had managed to get off a shot, which missed its mark. Almost as soon as he fired, a rifle butt came smashing down across his face, knocking him unconscious on the floor. The children, asleep in another room, hadn't even woken up. He bound Samantha and put her in an adjacent room. Everyone else was tied up and placed in the living room. The dead man was removed and placed in the barn with the man in the driveway. Buddy ordered two of his men to go through the entire house and barn and make sure there was nobody else on site. When they returned, one of the men nodded to Buddy and the other said, "I'm glad we ain't sleeping out in the rain tonight." Buddy managed a smile and replied, "Take first watch in front. I'll take first watch over the prisoners. 3-hour shifts." He looked at the other two men. "Get some sleep," he said. He placed Samantha in the room next to the children, so if he or his men heard the kids stir throughout the night, they could cut her loose and send her in to check on them. They didn't want to scare them if they came out and found strangers in the house. Buddy also informed his men of the last man in the group who was left in town to spy. "We don't know how or when he's coming back," Buddy announced. "Stay alert," he cautioned. Buddy Tanner and his men now had their base of operations. That's today's installment, this week's installment. And I think it's working. Again, bear with me. I'm new to this live thing here, but I see there's 11 viewers. I don't see any kind of chat or anything, so not really sure if there is a chat. If there is, I have no clue how to get it. And yeah, I believe there's got to be a chat. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's the chat. It doesn't look like there is any chat going on. Just available commands. I'm going to type in hello into the chat and see what happens. Yeah. If anybody's watching, just if somebody could just type something in. I just want to see if it's working. If there's no chat, that's okay. I would just like to confirm that it does work. Showing 13 viewers. 12 viewers now. Oh, it's just testing. Maybe I'm not even live. Maybe it's just testing. Who knows? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? All right. Well, if it is live, maybe the 13 people aren't even watching. If they are, maybe they just don't have anything to say. All right. I guess that's it then. Thanks for watching, listening. And again, this was this week's episode of the EMP series, day 157. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. God bless you.